Civilization. What if I told you that the fate of empires wasn't decided by warriors, but by accountants? Before humans wrote poetry, before they told stories, before history was even recorded, there was one thing they had to write down. Numbers. 7,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the first written words were not tales of heroes, but records of trade, of grain, of debt. Writing itself was born from the urge to track wealth. From the rise of the Roman Empire to the fall of kings, from hidden ledgers to billion-dollar scandals, accounting has shaped the world in ways most people never see. Think accounting is just about math. Think again. This is the untold story of how numbers built and broke the world. Before kings, before cities, before history itself, humans had a problem. A problem so big, it would lead to the very invention of writing itself. But what was it? Imagine you are a farmer, 8,000 years ago. Your life depends on your land, your animals, and your harvest. You count your sheep every morning, count your bags of grain every evening. But as your farm grows, so does your problem. You trade 5 sheep today, 10 bags of grain tomorrow. You promise 3 jugs of oil next week. But how do you keep track? How do you make sure no one cheats you? How do you remember? This was the very first challenge of civilization, keeping records. And from this simple need, something extraordinary was about to be born. This was their solution. Clay tokens. Each shape represented something valuable. A cone, 1 bag of grain, a sphere, 1 cow, a cylinder, 1 jar of oil. No more forgetting, no more confusion, just a simple way to count their wealth. But there was still a problem. What if you lost your tokens? What if someone stole them? How could you protect your wealth? This was the first boule, a clay envelope, a safe for numbers. Only the owner's mark could prove what was inside. A new dilemma arose. Once sealed, how could they know what was inside without breaking it open? And in that moment, history changed. No longer did they need to open the boule. They could see what was inside. Numbers had left the world of objects and entered the world of symbols. And then a breakthrough. Why use tokens at all? Why not just draw them? This was the birth of something never seen before. Writing. Think about this. Before poetry, before laws, before myths and legends, the first thing humans ever wrote down was not stories, not prayers, but numbers. And so, from a simple clay token to the vast financial world of today, accounting didn't just record history, it built it. Trade grew, cities expanded, and suddenly, storing thousands of little tokens became a nightmare. So, someone had a revolutionary idea. Instead of keeping the tokens, why not press them into wet clay and leave an imprint? This way, they could just read the marks instead of carrying the tokens everywhere. And just like that, the first records were born. But this was only the beginning. The temples, the most powerful institutions of the time, needed more than just simple tallies. They needed to track loans, taxes, and trade agreements. Who owed grain to the temple? How much silver did a merchant promise to pay? When was a debt due? The priests, yes, the first accountants were actually priests, started carving more detailed records into clay tablets. This system became so advanced that by 3000 BC, the first known tax records appeared. And yes, even back then, people hated paying taxes. Of course, mistakes happened. At first, there were thousands of different symbols, making it hard to remember them all. So, scribes simplified them into a new script called cuneiform, a series of wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay. And just like that, writing was born, not for poetry, not for stories, but for accounting. But this was only the beginning. As civilizations grew, so did the need for better bookkeeping. And soon, a new system would emerge, one that would change the financial world forever. Close your eyes and imagine walking through an ancient marketplace. Merchants are shouting prices, gold and silver coins are clinking, and scribes sit in temple courtyards, pressing symbols into clay tablets. This was the world of early bookkeeping. Civilization had already discovered writing, and now people were about to take their record-keeping to a whole new level. Around 2600 BC, something changed. It wasn't enough to just write down what people owned. They needed to track debts, wages, and taxes in an organized way. And so, the first real accountants were born. These weren't just random merchants jotting down numbers. No, these were trained professionals, scribes. If you were a skilled scribe, you were valuable. Kings, merchants, and temple officials would pay handsomely for accurate records. What did these early accountants record? 1. Trade transactions. Who bought or sold what? 2. Loan agreements. Who borrowed grain, cattle, or silver? 3. Wages. How much workers were paid? 4. Taxes. How much people owed to the temple or king? But here's the catch. They needed better ways to store all this information. So, different civilizations came up with different methods. The evolution of bookkeeping systems. Step 1. Clay tablets. Mesopotamia, 2600 BC. Transactions were carved into clay using cuneiform symbols. Official government records and merchant transactions were stored on these tablets. The problem? Clay tablets were heavy. They broke easily, and they weren't exactly private. Step 2. Papyrus scrolls. Egypt, 2000 BC, 1500 BC. Egyptians ditched clay and started writing on papyrus, an early form of paper made from reeds. It was lightweight, easy to store, and perfect for detailed financial records. The problem? Papyrus decayed over time, and if it got wet, it was ruined forever. Step 3. Wooden tablets and wax boards. Greece and Rome, 1000 BC to 500 BC. The Greeks and Romans took things further with wooden tablets covered in wax. They could erase and rewrite transactions by smoothing out the wax, like an ancient whiteboard. The problem? If it got too hot, the wax melted, and all records were gone. But even with these methods, bookkeeping had serious challenges. Problem 1. Lost or damaged records. Clay shattered, papyrus rotted, and wax melted. Problem 2. No standard system. Different cities used different symbols and counting methods. Problem 3. Fraud and cheating. People quickly realized they could change records to avoid paying taxes. And just like that, accounting fraud was born. People were already finding ways to fake numbers. This is when auditors, trusted individuals who checked financial records, started becoming important. By 500 BC, bookkeeping had transformed. Scribes were no longer just simple record keepers, they were financial experts who kept civilizations running. But this was just the beginning. Soon, the world would see the rise of Roman and Greek accounting systems, and eventually, the invention of double-entry bookkeeping, the foundation of modern accounting. The Greek accounting system, numbers, merchants, and public audits. As civilizations grew, so did the need for better accounting systems. Enter ancient Greece, 500 BC, 100 BC, a world of brilliant philosophers, daring merchants, and powerful city-states. The Greeks weren't just warriors and thinkers. They were traders, businessmen, and government administrators who needed to manage money effectively. And so, Greek accounting took shape, influenced by mathematics, commerce, and governance. Greek philosophers and mathematical influence. Long before calculators or spreadsheets, Greek philosophers were obsessed with numbers. Pythagoras, the famous mathematician, believed numbers were the key to understanding the universe. Euclid, the father of geometry, laid the groundwork for measuring land and wealth. Aristotle, the great thinker, discussed the importance of wealth management and financial ethics. These mathematical ideas influenced early accounting. Merchants realized that to run a successful business, they needed to track their money accurately. Some historians even suggest that Greek traders might have used an early form of double-entry accounting, though no solid evidence remains. But one thing is clear. The Greeks understood profits, losses, and financial tracking like never before. Business and merchant accounting. Now, let's step into a busy Greek port city. Imagine ships unloading olive oil, wine, and fine pottery, while merchants hustle to track their sales and expenses. Greek traders relied on two primary accounting tools: wax tablets, perfect for short-term records, but risky because the wax could melt. Papyrus scrolls, a better, long-term solution for financial tracking. And guess what? The Greeks even developed some of the fundamental accounting terms we still use today, such as assets, the wealth or property a merchant owned; liabilities, the debts they owed; expenses, the costs of running their business. 3. Government and public accounting. But accounting wasn't just for businesses. Greek city-states, like Athens and Sparta, needed money to fund wars, build temples, and run the government. To manage this, they created an early public finance system. Taxes were collected to support military campaigns and public projects. Special financial officers, called logistai, were appointed to audit public funds. In Athens, all public money was stored in the Parthenon, and priests managed state finances. And here's the most impressive part. Athens introduced public audits. Citizens could review financial records and see exactly how the government spent money. This was an early step toward financial transparency, a concept that would later influence modern accounting practices. The Greek system paved the way for future advancements in finance. They combined mathematics, commerce, and public accountability, creating a foundation that later civilizations would build upon. But things were about to change again. As the Greek world faded, another great power rose: the Roman Empire. And with it came a revolution in accounting that would shape financial history forever. The Roman accounting system, the empire of numbers. The Greek accounting system laid the foundation, but as one great civilization faded, another rose to power, one that would dominate the world for centuries. Welcome to ancient Rome, 100 BC to 500 AD, a land of conquests, trade, and economic power. The Romans were not just warriors. They were brilliant administrators who perfected the art of financial management. 1. Rise of the Roman Republic and early accounting, 100 BC, 27 BC. Before the mighty Roman Empire, there was the Roman Republic, a time when Rome expanded its trade routes, military strength, and taxation systems. With this rapid growth, accounting became more critical than ever. Banks, argentarii, emerged, and money lending became common. Rome had its own version of early banking institutions. The Roman government needed a foolproof way to record transactions, so they started using stone and metal tablets instead of wax and papyrus, making fraud much harder. The economy was booming, but managing it required an even stronger system. And then came the Roman Empire. 2. The Roman Empire and Advanced Accounting, 27 BC, 476 AD. In 27 BC, Augustus became Rome's first emperor, and with his rule, Rome's economy became massive, demanding strict financial organization. To manage this, the Romans developed the central treasury, aerarium, a state-controlled financial system that oversaw all public money. A budgeting system. Funds were allocated for military expenses, infrastructure, and public welfare. Detailed financial planning. The Romans had structured financial management centuries before modern accounting. The empire was thriving, but what fueled its economy? Taxes. 3. Roman taxation and public finance. Rome had one of the most complex tax systems in ancient history. Taxes funded wars, roads, aqueducts, and even the famous Colosseum. The Romans established tributum, an extensive tax collection system. They conducted a census every 5 years, tracking the population and wealth distribution to ensure fair taxation. To maintain financial order, public accountants, rationales, were responsible for recording state revenues, military expenses, and tax collection. Rome's financial system was highly advanced, but it wasn't just about numbers, it was about ethics. Cicero, Roman Laws and Accounting Ethics. The famous Roman statesman Cicero, 106 to 43 BC, spoke about honesty in financial records. He believed that accounting should be transparent and that officials should be held accountable. Roman courts required detailed financial documentation in legal disputes, setting the stage for modern auditing practices. Corrupt officials faced severe punishments if caught misusing public funds. But even the mighty Roman financial system had its flaws, mistakes, and improvements. Like the Greeks before them, the Romans faced challenges in managing their vast wealth, fraud, and corruption. Some officials misused public funds. Solution: the Romans introduced strict financial audits and enforced legal consequences for fraud. Limited paper and recording materials, wax tablets and scrolls weren't durable. Solution: Romans started using stone tablets and metal engravings for important records. Complex tax system. Tax collection was often inconsistent. Solution: centralized accounting offices helped standardize tax collection across the empire. The legacy of Roman accounting. The Romans were masters of organization, and their financial systems influenced modern bookkeeping, auditing, and tax management. But as history teaches us, even the greatest empires fall. With the collapse of Rome, Europe entered the Dark Ages, and for centuries, accounting progress slowed. But the story doesn't end here. Up next, we explore how medieval Europe revived financial systems and set the stage for modern accounting. The medieval and Islamic contributions to accounting, 15th to 15th centuries. As the Roman Empire fell, Europe entered the medieval era, a time of kingdoms, feudalism, and religious power. While much of the Roman financial system collapsed, accounting found new guardians: monasteries, merchants, and Muslim scholars. This era transformed accounting, laying the foundation for modern banking, auditing, and bookkeeping. Let's dive in. 1. Accounting in medieval Europe, 500s to 1400s. During the Middle Ages, economic power shifted to 3 key players: monasteries and churches, managed vast lands and wealth using manorial accounting to track agricultural production, donations, and land ownership. Feudal lords and kings, controlled taxation, military expenses, and trade revenues, requiring organized financial records. Merchant guilds, 11th to 14th centuries, these groups organized business records, tracking debts, profits, and wages as trade expanded across Europe. Innovations and systems. The tally stick system, 11th centuries. England used wooden sticks with carved marks to track taxes and loans, reducing fraud. The Exchequer, 11th century. England's early government accounting office was created to track royal revenues, marking an important step toward centralized financial management. Challenges in medieval Europe. Messy record-keeping led to financial mismanagement, corruption and fraud in tax collection. Solution: the rise of auditing systems and the use of ledgers to improve financial accuracy. The Islamic Golden Age and its impact on accounting, 700s to 1400s. While Europe struggled with basic financial management, the Islamic world flourished, making groundbreaking advancements in accounting, banking, and finance. Key contributions from Islamic civilization. Bayt al-Mal, 700s. The Islamic state treasury developed a systematic accounting of public finances, ensuring transparency. Hawala system, 800s. An early banking and money transfer system similar to modern checks and wire transfers. Al-Muqaddasi, 9th century, developed inventory management systems for businesses, tracking goods and transactions. Al-Khwarizmi, 800s. His work on numerals and algorithms influenced bookkeeping and mathematics-based financial systems. Ethics in Islamic accounting. Islamic scholars emphasized fairness, honesty, and transparency in finance, inspiring many principles still used in modern accounting and Islamic banking. 3. Problems and solutions in the medieval era. As trade expanded across Europe and the Middle East, accounting faced major challenges. Problem 1. Difficulty keeping accurate records. Solution: development of written ledgers. Problem 2. Financial corruption and tax fraud. Solution: early auditing systems. Problem 3. Lack of standardization. Solution: adoption of double-entry bookkeeping, which we'll explore in the next era. The stage is set, but now, accounting is about to take a monumental leap forward. Get ready for the rise of Luca Pacioli and the double-entry system, the blueprint of modern accounting. The Renaissance and the birth of double-entry. Bookkeeping, 1400s to 1600s. The Renaissance was a time of innovation, trade expansion, and financial revolutions. As commerce flourished across Europe, the need for a more structured accounting system became critical. This era saw the rise of banking cities like Florence, Venice, and Genoa, where merchants required precise financial records to manage their growing businesses. The biggest breakthrough in accounting came from Luca Pacioli, the man often called the father of accounting. Luca Pacioli, an Italian mathematician and Franciscan friar, revolutionized accounting by formalizing the double-entry bookkeeping system in his 1494 book, Summa de Arithmetica, Geometria, Proporzioni et Proporzionalità. This book did not invent double-entry bookkeeping. Venetian merchants had already been using it, but it was the first to explain and standardize the method, making it accessible to businesses and governments alike. Key developments in the Renaissance era. Expansion of trade in Europe required better financial tracking. Banking cities like Florence, Venice, and Genoa became financial hubs. Luca Pacioli published the first comprehensive book on accounting in 1494. What is double-entry bookkeeping? This system records every financial transaction in two accounts, a debit and a credit. This method allows businesses to detect errors, reduce fraud, and maintain financial transparency. By ensuring that every transaction remains balanced, double-entry bookkeeping became the foundation of modern accounting. Why was double-entry bookkeeping revolutionary? Reduced errors and fraud. Each transaction had to be balanced, making it easier to identify mistakes. Clear financial records. Businesses could track profits, losses, and investments more effectively. Trust in business. Banks and investors could evaluate financial stability before providing loans. Challenges and solutions. Problem. Merchants lacked a standardized system. Solution. Pacioli's book provided rules for bookkeeping. Problem. Fraud and mismanagement were common. Solution. Double-entry bookkeeping introduced accountability. Problem. Governments needed better tax collection. Solution. Well-kept financial records allowed for fairer taxation. By the 1600s, double-entry bookkeeping had spread across Europe. Merchants, bankers, and governments began using this system, paving the way for structured financial management. This period solidified accounting as an essential tool for economic growth. The Renaissance truly changed accounting forever. But the evolution didn't stop there. Next, we step into the Industrial Revolution, 17th to 19th centuries, where accounting transformed from a business tool into a structured profession with laws, standards, and global influence. We've already seen how accounting evolved from basic record-keeping to the revolutionary double-entry bookkeeping system during the Renaissance. Now, let's step into the next great transformation, where accounting became a true profession and shaped the financial world as we know it today. Key developments in professional accounting. 1. The Industrial Revolution and the rise of professional accountants. Large-scale industries replaced small businesses. Factory owners and investors needed reliable financial experts to track money, prevent losses, and ensure profitability. Railways, factories, and banks depended on trained accountants to manage investments and financial records. 2. The birth of professional accounting bodies, mid-1800s. The need for standardization led to the creation of official accounting organizations. In 1854, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Scotland, ICAS, became the first professional accounting body. By 1880, the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, ICAEW, was established, setting the stage for certification and training. No more random bookkeeping. Now, accountants needed to be certified professionals. Challenges that led to improvements. Problem 1. Business fraud and unregulated accounting, 1800s to 1900s. Solution. Governments introduced professional certifications and auditing requirements. Problem 2. The Great Depression exposed weak financial reporting, 1929. Solution. New laws, such as the Securities Exchange Act, 1934, enforced strict financial transparency.